SEC Chairman Gary Gensler testified before the Senate Banking Committee on Thursday. During the hearing, Senator Sherrod Brown said that, quote, "We can't allow the crypto market to undermine the $100 trillion capital market. That is fundamentally our job here." The White House on Friday unveiled a new framework on regulating digital assets, including cryptocurrencies, which includes increased oversight and exploring the creation of a potential digital U.S. dollar. This marks the Biden administration's most significant effort yet to establish a policy to regulate crypto assets.
Thank you, Chair Gensler. And I think that what you said, and I've heard you say this before in smaller groups, publicly, bigger groups, that we can't allow the crypto market to undermine the $100 trillion capital market. That's fundamentally our job here. Consumer protection's all that, but fundamentally that is our job in the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee, and that is yours. You've made improving transparency and corporate disclosures a priority in addition to the climate risk disclosures, enhanced stock buyback information I mentioned earlier. The Commission is addressing cybersecurity risks, improving visibility, if you will, into concentrated ownership of stocks. Discuss briefly why it's critical that we improve these types of disclosures for investments, large and small investors, and for how markets operate.
I would say there's two core things, and it goes back to our founding. One was this basic bargain that investors get to decide as long as they get the full and fair disclosure, material disclosures, but full and fair disclosures, and they get to decide, and you can't defraud them and mislead them. That lowers the cost of capital, actually, because then there's trust in the market. The second thing that transparency does is it helps promote competition in the markets. And competition, that's the nature of things. It promotes our economies as well. And that competition amongst intermediaries, amongst people trying to raise money from the public. And so I'd say those are the two things, not to mention also market integrity.
Thank you. I've noticed today, I commented, and Senator Toomey has confirmed this, that we will see an unusually high turnout of Republicans for this hearing today. I think that the turnout of Republicans, many of whom against all evidence, many Republican senators, many of whom against all evidence are climate deniers, will, I would assume, ask you questions about that. But let me go with that. On climate risk disclosure, specifically discuss why your agency is what you're proposing is not, quote, making climate policy, but rather how improving disclosure helps all investors.
Well, it's because that right now, hundreds of companies and investors representing not trillions, but tens of trillions of dollars of assets under management are in this conversation already. Investors get to decide. We're not a merit regulator. Some people think we might be. We're not. We're a disclosure-based regulator. But investors today want to know about climate risk because it matters to the future path of the performance, financial and other performance. What are customers going to do? What is the supply chain going to do? What might happen around the globe? Because our U.S. issuers are operating in many jurisdictions around the globe. So it really does go back into when I buy or sell a stock or vote a proxy, climate risk matters to those investors. We have a role to help bring some consistency to those disclosures that are already happening.
You're clearly saying you are not a merit regulator, but a disclosure regulator is really important here, and I hope my colleagues remember that you said that and think that through as they ask their questions. Let me ask for crypto in the last minute and a half. The crypto markets touch securities and banking and commodities laws. My colleagues developed legislation, as you know, that would give the CFTC jurisdiction over part of the crypto market. Remind us why it's important. I'll ask two questions together so you can take the last minute and a half. Remind us why it's important for financial regulators to coordinate oversight to make sure that gaps or loopholes don't exist. And just would you agree to continue to work with our committee, the CFTC, and the banking regulators to make sure we get this right?
I do commit to that. Let me just say, when I say that it's important to protect and ensure that the $100 trillion securities market works, it's because that's the heart of how we price risk in our financial markets and how investors save. And this committee and the House Financial Services Committee oversees that and wrote into law that there was one cop on the beat and one regulator. The definition of security should be, I think, kind of the exclusive remit of these two committees, I'm looking across the aisle, and the agency that you set up. If we end up with that there's multiple federal agencies defining what a security is, and another agency tries to define it, it could undermine what we're doing as to when is a Treasury security a security, when is something else in the equity markets or elsewhere a security. To your question about working together, we work together with the other federal financial regulators. We just yesterday announced something in the Treasury markets that we worked hand in glove with the Treasury and the Federal Reserve. We, with the CFTC, I was honored to chair that agency. I love the agency, the CFTC. I love the SEC. It's like my three daughters. I do want to say that we work closely with the CFTC with regard to a recent rule that we put out, and there are many parties in the markets that are dual registrants. We have dual broker-dealer registrants. They're registered with the CFTC and us. So as well on the fund advisory side. If Congress moved forward to give the CFTC greater authority, let's say over Bitcoin, then we'd, of course, work together. But we've already worked together dually on a number of enforcement actions in the crypto space.
Thank you. One brief statement. Your testimony mentioned the Enforcement Division shrank by 5% over the last 5 years. Yet, despite that, the SEC has pursued new cases in crypto focused on fraud and misconduct for financial professionals and securing admissions of guilt. That doesn't happen often enough. I thank you for doing that.